Welcome to Mommy Heal Thyself. We feature guests who provide you with the tools, resources, and strategies you need to say no to a life of pain and suffering from all forms of preventable disease, toxic drugs, and unnecessary surgeries. We hope to inspire you to boldly reclaim your ability to heal and to serve the ones you love. Hello, my lovely sisters. Welcome once again to another episode of Mommy Heal Thyself. And I am here with a beautiful goddess, Yemaya Indira, and she is phenomenal because she is an empowerment mentor, longtime community visionary, soulful embodiment birthing specialist. She's also a grief priestess and somatic trauma healing bodywork teacher. Yemaya's purpose is to help humanity to align in freedom and in protection of the earth's beauty. She's an intuitive kinesthetic empath with over 30 years of practice and expertise in the healing arts, somatic therapy using the Rosen Method, and trauma release works, Eastern and Western spirituality, community development, and performing arts. Her latest continuing education credentials are with the NARM Institute, Neuro Affective Relational Model, for C-PTSD recovery as a NARM-informed professional. Now, today, we're going to be discussing trauma-informed life mentoring and how to transform trauma to freedom using somatic therapy. Thank you so much, Yemaya, for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And I love this description. I'm like, who's that woman? I want to meet her. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for joining us because this is so critical. I would love for you to begin by telling us a little bit more about the problem that you help women to solve.
Yeah. So I really, I help, I'm not saying woman anymore. I'm saying powerful sensitives. And these are two words I put together lately because I feel that a lot of us are powerful sensitives at different ends of the spectrum of that. And sometimes that means that we are deeply empathic, which is quality a lot of women walk their lives with. Or sometimes we have taken refuge in the mind, and I'll go deeper into that. But really to help us recover from complex PTSD so that we can really thrive and share our gift with the world. I want to say that it has been my path. You know, it's not something that I studied because I thought, oh, wow, that'd be really great to help people with that. No, it's like, oh, darn. I have major complex PTSD and childhood trauma. And the only way I'm going to live the life that I want is if I really go and dive into this. So I started really early on and my hands and, you know, and brain and heart into all the possibility of, you know, schooling that I could put my hands on and was guided toward so that I could really recover and be a normal functional human. Really.
So tell us a little bit more about that in terms of what is it that brought you to this path and when were you aware that you needed to do something different to deal with that energetic past?
Yeah, I would say it was really in my early 20s. I was living in San Francisco at the time. And I had difficulties with in my relationship with men specifically, in my intimate relationships. And a lot of anger was coming up and I wasn't sure exactly how to address it. So at some point I decided to, you know, go into a Zen center, monastery, and I became a monk for a couple of years because I really wanted to look at what was going on there. I had a very violent father that took me away from my mother when I was 5 years old. So, you know, there was some abandonment issues in my system. There was some violence, some witnessing of violence, and then later on some violence on my physical being as a teenager. And so the way that was translating and the way I'm seeing, people coming to me, the symptoms would be a lot of depression, which often we can link to some anger that hasn't had the chance to be expressed, some fire that needs to be able to be moved out of the body, or like lack of focus, an ability to be present, a lot of irritation, a lot of aggressivity, or just a sense of being, having a lack of purpose. So there is a lot of different ways we cope. We have tons of amazing, actually, coping mechanism that allow us to survive the challenges of our upbringing. So the work that I offer people with the Somatic is to dismantle all this protective system that does not serve us anymore as adults. It's actually they're in the way of our authenticity. They're in the way of our expression, our ability to really be in purpose. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think this then puts a little bit of layers, because since we have developed all of these coping mechanisms, we don't necessarily see the problem because it's being masked by all of these coping mechanisms. So what are some of the coping mechanism strategies that women sometimes have absorbed that are really covering up the real problem?
Yeah, great question. Anything that's looking like an addiction. So it could be an addiction to food. Food is really great as, keeping things inside, right? We're just piling things on top of the feelings. We're finding nurturing in some things that is beyond ourselves or beyond our relationship. It could be smoking cigarettes, right? It's like the smoke numbs the heart. It could be smoking other things, that bring us into an elated place of well-being, but covers or hinder our emotional growth. It could be being a workaholic, like anything that is keeping you from being in stillness with yourself and finding, your true feelings. It could be, social media addiction. It could be taking care of everybody, which I think is a lot of the woman that you address, like being like the caretaker, and then suddenly one day you find yourself having no one else to care for and you're lost. Because really it's time for you to take care of yourself, but you don't know exactly how to do that because you've always been taking care of what's outside. Yeah.
And you bring up a good point that sometimes we use that strategy of taking care of others to give us an excuse for not dealing with the painful past, for not dealing with the emptiness that we feel, for not dealing with the sense of not having a purpose other than being a caretaker.
Exactly. And then sometimes you see people like being really in control. Like, I remember having a client, she was this amazing manager. Oh my God, she could manage anything, corporate world, like everything was perfect in place. But what she was really craving was to be an artist. She really wanted to create art. But she had put this, this control mechanism because she had been assaulted in the past, at a young age, and, completely taken by surprise. And like had a terrible accident, at that time, broken neck and everything. But, so that was her coping mechanism, is like to make sure that nothing was going to take her by surprise anymore. So all these, they're beautiful mechanisms that, I feel like we have in place, but it's very difficult to be able to dismantle them by ourselves. Excuse me. And that's why, for me to find my path, which actually one of the major, support I got for this path was the Rosen Method. Bodywork, which is somatic. And that really started me in my recovery and what I call unwinding, everything inside of me through the muscle system mechanism. Like we use our muscle system, right? We contract our shoulders. We protect our hearts with often our left shoulder coming forward to protect the heart, or we bring the chest forward and tell the world that nothing can nothing can hurt us anymore. We arch our lower back in defiance, or we bring our tailbone toward the front so that we're in compliance and we're acquiescing with every, so that there is no danger, we don't, threaten anyone. So there's all this incredible, mechanism in the body that needs to be understood and unwound so that we can find the authenticity of the person and the authenticity of our life path.
So now what are some of the common mistakes that women make when they decide that they're going to start to deal with these issues, the trauma of the past?
I think, so we're usually trying to get away. And I think we often, as women specifically, blame ourselves. There's the shame factor, there's the blame factor. And, and it's easy to turn that into a lack of self-love, right? So, if we are running for something that's going to help us cope, like shopping addiction, like anything that's taking us away, from the center, pretty much. I think that's the mistake. And then it's like, oh, I must have done something wrong. Or there's something wrong with me, therefore I don't deserve to be free. I don't deserve to be empowered. And, it makes a lot of sense for us to go there. It is really, and especially if things happen in childhood, the child, especially early childhood, thinks that, the world revolve. The child thinks that the world revolved around him or her, and that is normal. That's part of the human development, right? Therefore, if something really terrible and tragic happened during that early childhood, the child mechanism will be like, oh, I'm the cause of this. There must be something wrong with me. Parents are divorcing, or name it. So that is the most difficult, place to unwind. Is like, how do you let go of that, inner criticism and fulfill that place with incredible, infinite self-love?
So what is the number one tip that you would give women then when they're dealing with this?
Well, I think trusting is a big one. So being able to release into what I call the oceanic wave of feeling. And a lot of things that are in the way of that, is we go like, oh my God, into this pool of feeling, I'm going to drown. There is so much grief, maybe, I'm not going to make it. And sometimes people are in complete fear. They think they're just going to die. There's so much pain there. And so I want to encourage women to trust that there is a mechanism as well, very similar to the one that was coping. There is one that's going to help you move through this wave of feeling, and it's like the surfers, when there is a big wave coming, you don't want to fight against it. You want to dive in it and let go and release and trust that you're going to be brought to a safe shore. So very in other words, the most simplest tip I would suggest today is when you have time, when you're feeling perhaps a disconnection with yourself, and you're feeling like the syndrome, like I call it the little girl wearing a small, tight, wet dress on, when nothing feels right, nothing feels right. Or perhaps there is so much grief and you have no idea what to do with it. Just put yourself in a safe space. If you have the chance to be able to connect with nature, nature is always, the arm of the mother, are always there to support you. And just put a hand on your belly and your solar plexus. Maybe your left hand is down on your belly and your solar plexus, and one hand is on your heart. And just being with you, closing your eyes and taking some deep, slow breath. And just telling yourself, and you might even say the word out loud, I got ya. I got you, honey. I got you. I am there because you're talking to your inner child. I am here for you. Maybe there is no one else, but I am here for you. So there is a whole reparenting work that needs to happen from your own grown-up adult to your inner child. And just those simple words, I got you, I'm with you, I'm here, I got you. And that gentle touch of your hands on the front of your body, then you can really drop into a softness and start trusting your oceanic wave of feeling. That'd be helpful.
That is beautiful. And that is one of the things that I keep emphasizing to our women, which is that you are divinely, or should I say, we are divinely designed as healers. There is a innate programming within us to heal. So it's not that we have to look at these external things to quote unquote fix us, because we're constantly self-repairing. That is the innate desire that every aspect of our being has, to self-repair and to heal. So I love that
exactly.
You're emphasizing that in terms of being able to trust that this is the program that is operating in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
So now,
go
ahead.
Oh, I'm thinking that, like if people don't have the means, to go and work with a somatic therapist, there is always the means of reaching out to sisters, and come into women circles and hold space for each other. Like like just like 4 or 5 sisters, and then, taking turn. One goes in the center and is being held, gently, I got you, babe, I got you. And that is so healing.
Wow. So now, what concept or book or program or person or experience has been most impactful on your own personal journey and experience?
Well, definitely, as I said, the Rosen Method, which is ROSEN method, was life-changing for me. It was created by a woman called Marian Rosen, and she was a somatic therapist pioneer. She passed a few years ago at the nice age of 95, and she was still, scheduled to teach that month, which is fabulous. She taught her entire life. So people can look that up. There are different centers, in different places of the world. Lately, I've really enjoyed the NARM, the Neuro Affective Relational Model. It's a little bit more complex, using more psychological tools, but there is a book from the creator. His name is Dr. Lawrence Heller, Heller, and he has a healing developmental trauma book that people could go into if they love this kind of in-depth work. There is another thing that really helps me, that I like, when you've done a lot of emotional release work, then I feel like it's also important to train your mind to have the discipline to not fall back into the trauma.
Ah.
And for that piece, so when you've been to dismantle, and that you're more like in a very vulnerable open space, I invite people to perhaps look at YouTube videos from Abraham Hicks. If you know this woman, Esther Hicks, that channel the entities of Abraham, that are very loving entities that are helping humans to keep their minds into a state of discipline, so that you don't always make the same, like if you don't be down that hole, and you really know your emotions, because it's important to know them, then maybe you don't want to spend your life there, right? So you need to catch yourself when you're falling into that cycle, going like, oh, I'm going to make another choice today. I'm going to decide to stay, and raise my vibration into something more light and see what happens, and create a new reality for myself. So there's a lot of beauties in those particular teaching I've been enjoying. And then, dance is a huge one, like dancing, moving energy out of the body. There's the 5 rhythms from a beautiful pioneer, Gabriel Roth, who left us a few years back. There's ecstatic dances that are happening all over the world these days. So moving, expressing through the body is huge. And a YouTube channel, people can also check it. And if it's okay for me to share the name, it's the embrace .life, and people look at YouTubes on my Instagram and things like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you have a valuable free resource that I can direct the women to?
Yeah, I would say, like the YouTube channel is, I'm not like a daily poster on that, but yeah, there's so much on YouTube, it's, and, I don't advocate for whatever, whoever is running the channel, but there are a lot of beautiful growth oriented people, that are offering different things. I'm actually just rebuilding my website right now, and we're going to have a class, actually a master class, which I call the Powerful Sensitives. That's going to be a free resource that people can watch to see where they are in the spectrum. Are they the sponge, or are they the heady ones that doesn't drop in the feelings, and how do we find a happy medium, to navigate life, in a way that makes our hearts happy and the people around us happy, but most of all ourselves. Let's not forget about ourselves. Yeah.
So what is the one question that I should have asked you that would help women to create lives filled with power, passion, prosperity, purpose, and peace?
Well, okay, maybe I'll go into why is this important to do this work right now, and why, why do I want to light a fire under everybody's butt? Excuse my language. Because it's beyond ourselves. We are at a time, and at least in my circles here, more on the West Coast and, in Hawaii and even in Europe, it's like, the patriarchal world is dying. Okay, so we need to rise up and bring the deeper feminine aspects of life and of this planet, to be so active that people can find the resources and the empowerment and the abundance there is when you're walking in a deep feminine life path. And the deep feminine life path comes with owning our feelings, riding the waves, the oceanic wave of feeling, and bringing that compassion into the world, bringing that compassion to the masculine. I have an incredible amount of men reaching out for healing these days. I've worked with men my entire life, but like right now, the masculine is craving something that we can pass on to them, right? It's like teaching them the way to feel, teaching them the way to trust in the beauty of the earth, Once you touch the beauty of the earth, the beauty of the children, you're going to want to stop destroying it, right? But you have to be able to let the beauty touch you, therefore to be able to open your heart, to be able to want to defend it and protect it. So we need to wake up in ourselves so we can have the masculine in the outer world, in the masculine body, or in the inner world, because we all have those two energies, and be the protector, right? Be the protector for the softness of the feminine, for the beauty of the earth, for the beauty of the children. And that's why it's important for one of us to be willing to do our work right now.
You bring up such an important point that I share over and over with the women in our podcast, which is the importance of us reawakening the womb man within us. There's so much in our world that has, I believe, pulled us away from that beautiful divine feminine power, where we have taken on the persona of the masculine. And in doing so, not only have we discredited our needs, but we've also discredited the needs of our family. Our men need us to be women. Our men need us to be the womb, the safe space that they can go to, that they can just be enveloped within and feel that warmth and that comfort and that knowing that, in a way of speaking, as you said, we become the protectors for that softness in our men. We become the protectors for that innocence in our children, but only when we are reconnected or reaffirming that femininity within ourselves. And that's why it's so important for us, as you said, to just let go into the oceanic waves, into the watery principle, and to allow ourselves to trust and to release, and to not feel that we always have to be wielding the staff of control. That's a very masculine type of energy, where you feel you have to control and dominate, whereas the feminine principle is like release and trust. So I thank you so much for bringing that to the forefront. Absolutely powerful message for us.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for, running that message into your community. Yeah, we are so in alignment around that. Beautifully articulated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Yemaya. And thank you, ladies, for being with us today for Mommy Heal Thyself. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for tuning in for this episode of Mommy Heal Thyself. If you like what we're doing here, please share, subscribe, like us, and leave a comment. Your feedback is very much appreciated.